What's up, everybody? Josh Armijo here. I hope everybody's doing good and well and stuff. I got an album review to do for you, and I'm going to be talking to you about the new album from the band Full of Hell, entitled Full of Hell Merzbow. This is released on Profound Lore Records. Now, if you're not too familiar with this band, they are based out of both Maryland and Pennsylvania, and the best way to describe the sound of this band would be an extremely experimental, sludgy, chaotic, and just overall frenzied style of hardcore punk. This is a band that over the last couple of years have really made a name for themselves within the worlds of hardcore punk and all other forms of extreme music. This band has been a consistent workhorse, touring non-stop, making a ton of music, a lot of splits, a lot of EP releases, even dabbling in the worlds of noise. But this is a band that has really worked very hard to get to where they're at, and it shows on their first two full-length albums, 2011's Roots of Earth Are Consuming My Home and 2013's Rudiments of Mutilation. Rudiments of Mutilation was pretty much a continuation of what they were going for on their debut, but a lot more darker, a lot more moodier, and just a lot more chaotic. And that's what I enjoy about the Full of Hell sound. They try to be different. They try to make something that's not typical of the hardcore style of sound, mixing in other crazy elements of music, whether it be doom or sludge or power violence or death metal. It's really insane the influences that this band can get and can work with, and that album, Rudiments of Mutilation, ended up being in my personal top 10 of last year. So when I found out that Full of Hell were going to be working on a brand new album, I of course was very pumped and excited to hear about it. But even more so for the fact as to who they were going to be working with on this particular album. A guy by the name of Masami Akita, or otherwise whom you may best know under his stage guise of Merzbow. Merzbow is one of the most influential, legendary, and pioneering people to help front the movement of noise music. Harsh noise, power electronics. This guy has been steadily making music since the early 1980s. This guy is such a pioneer. He's made hundreds and hundreds of releases, albums, collaborations, and pretty much someone responsible for the kind of noise and crazy alterations you hear in current underground music. And I was very excited to hear how his style of noise would suit this sort of band, bringing in his own format of noise elements. And now here we are with the third full-length from Full of Hell, entitled Full of Hell Merzbow. It's 11 tracks, and it clocks in at around 23 minutes in length, and pretty much what you're going to expect from this album is somewhat of a 70-30% sort of deal. The majority of this album is pretty much your Full of Hell record, but the 30% that which incorporates the noise is definitely the idea of Merzbow. Once I heard the track Gordian Knot, I already had a feeling that this was going to be somewhat in the continuation of their evolvement as a band. As if Rudiments of Mutilation didn't already showcase their growth and movement as a band, Full of Hell Merzbow sets to continue on in that kind of warpath. I mean, it starts off with the track Burnt Synapse. It's just a quick, brief burst of craziness. I mean, it's ironic that I say burst because the song's called Burst Synapse, but it's a really awesome way to get this album started. And then moving on forward, you're going to be accustomed to the just overall aural and mental assault that's going to be coming your way once you listen to it. I mean, these guys are such talented musicians, and this album just proves why they are such a force to be reckoned with, and why this may potentially be the best thing that they've ever done as a band. It's just mind-boggling. The riff work on here, as per any usual Full of Hell release, is just loud, gritty, and just so perfectly toned. I love the way that the guitar playing is being handled here, especially on tracks like Blue Litmus and Thrum in the Deep. I mean, just the almost twisted sort of riffs that that Spencer is doing here with the riffs are just so crazy sounding. I mean, you get elements of the typical hardcore sort of guitar tone. You also get the elements of power violence and sludge, and I think it's just really amazing sounding how he handles the guitar work here. He's a very skilled guitar player, and with Full of Hell and Merzbow, he just showcases his skills as a very talented musician, and very much is a dominant factor throughout this entire release. Moving on to the bass, I love a Full of Hell bass tone. Brandon's bass is just really smooth. It's gritty, it's loud, it's toned just perfectly, and very suitable for this album's mix and mastering. I just think it really sounds awesome. It's not too domineering. I think it's well placed and very well versed throughout this entire album. Going back to tracks like Gordian Knot, I think that the bass is handled very well on that particular track. And even throughout the shorter bursts of songs that appear on here, pretty much the short songs range from around 1.5 minutes to around 30 seconds. The shortest track on here being Mute. But still, I think the mixture of guitar and bass work is just very, very powerful, and they even each other out very well here. Moving on to the drums, Dave is a crazy man. He is a spastic, crazy sort of drummer, and with Full of Hell and Merzbow, he just showcases why he's so very talented. I love his quick fills, his blast beats, his almost slow, sludgy drawl moments. I just really think it's awesome. Even to some of the lengthier tracks that are on here, once again referring to tracks like Thrum in the Deep, and a track like High Fells. I just think it's really, really insane the level of creativity that can be done with the drums here, and I think Dave delivers another really amazing drum performance. He's a blast to watch live, and in studio, he really does get the job done here. And once again, referring to the noise aspects of this record, Merzbow doesn't appear like overly dominant throughout this entire record. There's more to this than meets the eye, which I'll get into later in this review, but the way Merzbow's noise elements are handled here on this particular record are very fresh and inspiring. They're not distracting, they don't get in the way of any of the musicianship, and I definitely think that the noise aspects are extremely vital to certain parts of the songs, whether it be in the middle, the end, or the beginning. I think the noise aspects on here are very well crafted. And even going back to the track High Fells, I want to say I hear somewhat of a trumpet sound going on in that particular track. It almost reminds me of Naked City, John Zorn stuff in certain instances. And I think that's really cool that they incorporated those kind of elements on that particular track. And now we get onto the vocals. If you're accustomed to the Full of Hell vocal style, you're going to be in for a barrage of just sheer insanity when it comes to the vocals. Whether it be Dylan's highs or Brandon's lows, I think these guys work well with each other here in delivering the vocals. Once again, going back to the track Gordian Knot, I think the vocals on that track complement each other very well, because you get Dylan's really crazy, depraved sort of screams, and then things get balanced out with the low, booming guttural growls of Brandon. He really has a great voice. I mean, he's not only the bassist, but he delivers some very ugly vocal styles. I really love what he did on what they did on that particular track. And yeah, there's also some elements of crooning of some sorts. I forget which track it is. I think it's either Thrum in the Deep or High Fells. I'm at a loss for words on that particular track, but there's a moment where he verges onto more into a crooning sort of territory. Like, it almost invokes that sludge element that you would know Full of Hell for, and I think that's really crazy. And once again, it's reminding me of a lot of things, preferably one of the tracks from the last Full of Hell record, The Lord Is My Light. Pretty much a continuation of that sort of sludgy, depraved sort of vibe going on. I think those styles of vocals are very interesting, and they add more depth and creativity to this album. Yeah, as far as Full of Hell and Merzbow is concerned, I would say this album is an absolute triumph. I think this is probably the best thing that Full of Hell have ever done on a musical and creative sort of standpoint. I think it's really amazing, the level of intelligence and depth going into it. But let me turn to a different side of this release. If you happen to be getting the CD of this album, you're going to be given a special bonus disc entitled Sister Fawn, which is a 5-track, 34-minute long piece, which pretty much is the complete opposite of Full of Hell and Merzbow. Whereas I said it was a 70-30 thing for Full of Hell and Merzbow, this Sister Fawn release is completely dominated by Merzbow, with just some elements of Full of Hell thrown in there, bits and pieces. I mean, like the track Ergo, you hear a sample of The Conjure of Sacrifice, which I think sets the mood off perfectly on that track, leading on into the craziness and barrage of harsh noise. The track Mer's Drone with a multitude of blast beats and harsh noise, and then other instances of harsh vocals, choir vocals, pulsating drums, a little bit of repetition here and there, but then again, it's a Merzbow-orientated release. So I think that bonus disc is a definite yin and yang for this particular album. And I think that's what makes Full of Hell and Merzbow so unique and amazing. I really love this effort, and I definitely would consider this a triumph for both Full of Hell and for Masami Akita, aka Merzbow. This is a masterwork of a record, and honestly, I cannot get enough of it. It's a short album, but relish every minute and opportunity of time you get to spend with it, because I think it's amazing. If you're a fan of Full of Hell, you're definitely going to be falling in love with this. If you're a fan of Merzbow or any harsh noise, you will find something to enjoy about this release, preferably the second disc of the CD. It's just so amazing. So, if I had to pick any favorite tracks, I would definitely have to say Burst Synapse, Gordian Knot, Blue Litmus. I think the track Raise Thee Great Wall, Bloodied and Terrible is amazing. Throw 'em in the Deep, and High Fells. I think this is an absolutely amazing, beautiful, and twisted record. So I'm going to leave you a link in the description box as to where you can listen to some selected tracks and pre-order it. Once again, I mentioned that this is the version of this album that's going to be widely available is the 2-CD version direct through Profound Lore Records. It is scheduled to be released on November the 25th, but I believe it will be released a week prior to the street date, so that way you happen to get it early. And if you're one of the first 100 people to order the CD, the 2-CD set, you get a cassette tape compilation of all of Full of Hell's noise releases, volumes 1 through 4. So, lucky to anybody who may happen to get the tape, and I believe there will be a vinyl version coming out through A389 Recordings next year, 2015. So, I will definitely be interested in picking up the vinyl, but until then, this CD will suffice greatly. So, I would definitely recommend this to any Full of Hell fan or Merzbow fan. So, again, the album is Full of Hell and Merzbow by Full of Hell. This is released on Profound Lore Records. Definitely pick this up, and for a score, I'm going to give this a very strong 9.5 out of 10. Potential top 10, top 5 contender. This is just a manic near masterpiece, masterwork, whatever you want to call it. Full of Hell are definitely for real. So support Full of Hell. I'm going to conclude this review. Thanks all for watching. Thanks for checking out my channel, and until the next time, Armijo out.